Hey everyone, it's Deja from CrochetEverAfter.com. Today I am doing this free pattern workshop. It's the super easy baby beanie. So this is going to give you this cute little kind of striped effect. It's a super simple stitch that you guys already know. It's just single crochet, double crochet. But I'm going to show you how to create kind of almost an invisible seam by using tall chains instead of chain 3. So this is our seam, so you can see it's a lot less visible than a normal double crochet in the round, so I'll show you how to do that. I'm also going to talk about if you want to substitute yarn and you use a thicker or thinner yarn, how you can still make this beanie fit the baby with some easy math. As long as you have a calculator, you'll be fine. And also how you can just adjust this for a newborn. So that's at the very end of the video, so check that out if you want to adjust this for a brand new newborn. This is more for like, it'll last for a good year or two with the size. It's about an 18-inch circumference. So this is medium worsted weight. I'm using a 6mm USJ hook, but we'll talk about substituting during the pattern. But go ahead and download the pattern below and let's get started. Alright, so to start our beanie, we are going to do a magic adjustable loop or a magic adjustable ring, depending on who calls it what, but it's pretty simple to do if you know the steps. So the easiest way for me to explain it is you take your tail and you hold it between your two hands with the tail facing down, then the other part of your yarn is attached to the ball. Then you're going to take your right hand, or left hand if you're left-handed, and you're going to twist it down so that it folds on top of each other. And that's going to create the loop. So then I'm just going to grab it where it's crossed, and you'll see that the tail that's attached to the ball is just hanging there. So I'm going to reach through the ring that I just made and pull it up. So what that does is it starts the magic adjustable loop. Then I'm going to do the instructions that the pattern gives me. So it's chain 3, so we're going to yarn over, turn our hook down to get through the chain easy, pull through, push to our shaft, do that 3 times, and this is going to count as our very first double crochet. This is the only chain 3 double crochet we're going to be doing. We're going to use tall chains for the rest of the pattern, so this will be the only spot where you'll actually see a chain. So then we're going to do 11 double crochets in our ring. So make sure that this stays looped, like kind of a pretzel if you look at it. Make sure it stays looped. Don't let the tail fall out, otherwise it's not going to close up properly. If it's a little, if the loop or the ring is a little bit too large for you, you can just grab the tail, hold on to your stitch right here, and pull it closed a little bit, just to give you a little bit more peace of mind that it's not going to slip out. But we're going to go ahead and do 11 double crochets all the way around all of the yarn that we have here. So we yarn over back to front, insert our hook through the loop, yarn over, pull up that loop. And you'll see I kind of grab onto my loops to keep them all steady so they're not falling everywhere as I make my double crochet. Then I yarn over, I pull through the first 2, push to my shaft, yarn over, pull through the second 2. So now I have my double crochet. So doing it regular time, this is how it would look. I keep them close together so that there's not big gaps forming at the tops of my stitches. So if I just come all the way over here and start doing a double crochet, it's going to create a big gap when I push it closer. So you'll see it's a very messy stitch. When I pull it over, I have a big loop at the top. So I want to keep them close together so that they look nice when we close our loop. So again, pull through, pull up your loop, yarn over, and you'll see I kind of grab up here and it kind of holds my ring steady. Pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the second 2. So we're going to do 11 of those. If your ring is feeling a little large because you're going to get kind of a big rainbow look here, just tug on the tail to close it a little bit more and keep making those 11. Okay, I'm doing my 12th double crochet, or technically 11th double crochet because that chain 3 is counting as 1. Now I have all 12 done, and you see that I have a rainbow, so we're going to turn it into a circle by grabbing our tail, and I usually grab this very last stitch I made to hold on, and just pull it all the way closed. So you just keep pulling and pulling, and that's going to give you that closed hole in the center. So the more you pull it, the more it's going to close up. So then we're going to join our round with a slip stitch in the top of our chain 3. So we have our first chain, second chain, and third chain. You can also look at your first double crochet. The stitch is right on top, and go one over to the right or left if you're left-handed. Yarn over, pull through, and then pull through the loop on your hook. So now we have round 1 done. Round 2 is just a bunch more double crochets. Alright, so for round 2, we're going to start off with a tall chain. And what that is just a chain that's going to take the place of our chain 3, and it allows us to make a double crochet instead of a chain 3. So we'll get double crochets all the way around our round instead of having that one awkward chain 3. Since this is pretty squished together, that chain 3 is pretty masked, but as we get further out in our beanie, using the chain 3 is going to show up, and you'll see that on your seam. So this is just going to make it look a little better. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull out our loop that's on our hook to the size of a double crochet. It's better to go a little bit smaller than a little bit bigger. It's going to be masked better if it's smaller. So just pull it up a little bit to about the height of what your chain 3 was. Then we're going to lock that in. So we're going to yarn over and we're just going to do a chain. So it's going to lock it in so that it doesn't get pulled down when we start working our double crochet. So for this round, what we're going to do is put 2 double crochets in every stitch around. So the first thing we're going to do is work into the same stitch that we just did this tall chain, and we have a nice big hole right there that we can see, and we're going to do 2 double crochets there. So instead of doing a chain 3 and a double crochet, we can do 2 double crochets because we made that tall chain. And because it's nice and skinny, it's going to just blend right in when we join our round, and it's not going to be noticeable. So we're going to do 2 double crochets in that same hole. Then we're going to move to our next stitch. So this next stitch, usually next to our slip stitch, can look a little strange. It wants to open up. We don't want to go through just that one loop. We want to go through both loops. So if you look at it and kind of pull it together, you'll see that it looks just like the rest of the top of our stitches. So make sure you're going under both of those loops. They can look a little small and a little bit spread apart. The rest of the round will look normal. So we're going to do 2 double crochets in there, and 2 double crochets in every stitch after. So you can see that one's opening up nicely for us. And after you do that first double crochet, you have a nice large gap that you can see to work into. So we're just going to keep going with 2 double crochets in every stitch we come to. We should have 24 double crochets at the end of the round. So you can either count the front of your double crochets, they're like little posts. If you pull them apart, you can see here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or you can look at the top of your stitches and count each of these little V's. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we don't count that tall chain because it's not a stitch. It's just there to get us so that our first double crochet isn't squished down. So here's the last double crochet of the round. And now I can join it up. And because we did the tall chain, I totally skipped that and I work into the first double crochet that I made. So I'm going to put my hook under both loops of that first double crochet and do my slip stitch there. So you'll see that when we go, it's much less noticeable than this chain 3. So for the next round, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to tall chain, lock it in, and then do 2 double crochets in that big first hole. So our repeat for this round is 2 double crochets in one stitch, and then 1 double crochet in the next stitch. So we do that 12 times because every round we need to increase by 12 stitches. So when we get to round 4, we're going to measure what we have so far, because I'm going to show you how you can change the size of this or not worry about gauge. So whatever yarn you're using, you can still make this beanie very easily. So you don't have to use the yarn I'm using. As long as you know the math, you'll be fine to use whatever yarn you have available to you. So any size, any color, any weight, and it will be very easy. So again, we're doing 2 double crochets in one stitch, and then 1 double crochet in the next stitch. So if you stop and you get lost, put your work down and go somewhere and come back, look at the front of your stitches. So if you don't remember what comes next, just look at what you just did. You can see there's 1 coming out of this hole, and then we have kind of a V coming out of this next hole. So you can see the 2 posts going into that hole, so that way you can pick up where you left off and not mess up your stitch count. So we space these evenly around the beanie so that we don't get a strange bump, because we do need to increase by 12 stitches to get this to lay flat. But if I put all my increases right here, I would have this strange bulge in the beanie instead of having a nice circular beanie. So you see I forgot what I did, so I looked at my stitches to see what was next. So that's why we have to do it evenly around. That's why we put 1 stitch in between. So we're gonna have 36 stitches at the end of this round, so keep going and we'll join up for round 4. And my last double crochet of round 3, and then we're gonna join up. So again, we're going in the top of that very first double crochet, doing our slip stitch. Now we're ready for round 4. Same stuff, we're just gonna increase another 12 stitches, but this time between our increases we're putting 2 stitches. So as we go, each round that we increase, we put 1 extra stitch between each increase we do, which will come in handy when I'm showing you how to make sure that even if your gauge is off, your beanie is going to be the right measurement. So I'll show you that after this next round. So we're going to tall chain, double crochet 2 times in that same stitch. So that'll be our first increase. So you'll see brackets in the pattern, and brackets are just a tool to show you what you're going to do over and over again. So you'll see DC 2 times in next stitch, and then DC in next 2 stitches. So the comma between the DC 2 times and the next instruction is telling you go to the next stitch, do your double crochet, and then it says DC in next 2 stitches. So we're doing 1 in each of the next 2, and then the brackets say do it 12 times. So that means go back to the front of the bracket and do the 2 double crochets in 1 stitch. So anytime you see brackets, it's just repeating what's inside the brackets, how many times it tells you after the brackets. So 2 double crochets, 1 in each of the next 2 stitches, and then 2 double crochets in 1 stitch. So I do 1 more in there, then I do 1 in my next stitch, and then 1 in my next stitch. And that's going to lead us to 48 stitches for this round. We should be getting pretty close to the size of the beanie that we want. Maybe 1 more round. I'm going to show you how to figure it out at the end of this round. Here's my last double crochet of the round. I'm going to join it up. Now we're going to talk about if your yarn is not the same as mine. So if you're using a baby weight yarn, it's going to be a little bit thinner, a little bit thinner than this worsted weight. So a DK would be smaller. If you want to use bulky, it's going to be bigger, but you want the hat to still fit. So a quick geometry lesson. The round part that we have here is called our circumference, and heads are generally, depending on your age, pretty similar in circumference. So a baby's head will be anywhere from like 16 to 18 inches. That'll get you through about the first year. So if you're making this for a baby, you want to go somewhere between 16 and 18 inches. But it's going to be real difficult to measure around this circle accurately. So geometry helps us. By knowing how far across this is, or from the center out, the radius is from center out, or the diameter all the way across, we can use pi. If you remember pi in school, 3.14, we can find out what our circumference is without having to measure. So, grab my measuring tape here. So I grab my measuring tape and I measure from one side to the other. So you'll see I have about 5 inches. I don't necessarily have to count the V part of my stitches because we're going to work into those. So you kind of go in between, like from this portion here to this portion. So I'm pretty close to 5 inches. I'll lay this flat to make sure. So yeah, I'm real good. So about 5 inches across. So I'm going to take my calculator here and make sure I'm here. I take my 5 inches, which is my diameter, and then I'm going to multiply that by pi, so 3.14, and that's going to give me my circumference. So I'm at 15.7. So this size right now would probably work for a newborn. So I could stop here and go on to the body of the beanie. So in the pattern, you'll see that this is called the crown, and then we have the body. So if I wanted to make this for a brand new newborn, this would work. And this has lots of stretch. The double crochet is very stretchy, so you don't have to worry. This should work for a newborn up until about maybe like 3 months. Then they start growing real big. So I'm gonna do one more round because I want this to fit more like all the way up to a year old, so that way they can get some good use out of it. And I think it's better to make it a little bit bigger than too small because you don't want it like squished on the baby's head. So we're gonna do one more round. So depending on what yarn you're using, you may need to do a couple more rounds. So if you're using a thinner yarn, you may need to do a couple more rounds until you get it to whatever inch circumference you want to do. 17, 18 is probably going to be the safest. So the same thing, you would measure it across, times it by 3.14 and see what you're getting. So the increasing is going to be important because you still want to increase by 12 stitches. So remember, we did 2 stitches between our last increase. So this time we're going to do 3 stitches between each increase. And if you have to go a couple more rounds, just remember each round you go, you're going to add 1 more stitch between each increase. So if you have to do 2 more rounds, you're going to add 4 stitches for the round after this one. So for this one, we're doing our tall chain, double crochet 2 times for our increase. And then we're putting 3 double crochets between. So we do 1 in the next stitch, 1 in the stitch after, and then 1 in the stitch after that. So that is our bracket repeat. So we do that 11 more times, so 2 in the next stitch. So if you're going to do another round after this, you're just going to do another double crochet here instead of the increase and then increase. So each round is going to increase by 12 stitches. So we had 48. So now we are up to 60 stitches this round. So again, we're going to do 1 in the next stitch, 1 in the second stitch, 1 in the third stitch. So another thing that you can remember how many stitches you need to do is also what round you're on. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is round 5. So we have 2 for our increase and then 1, 2, 3. So each group is 5 stitches altogether. So we have 5 and then 5 and then 5. So your next round would be 6 stitches altogether before the increase. So that's another way to remember to keep track of how many stitches you should have. So again, we're going to go all the way around and then we'll measure it one more time to make sure we are good. And then we'll move on to the body of the beanie. So if you don't want to mess with any geometry or anything, just get the same yarn I have and make sure your gauge matches up, and you should get the same size beanie that I have. So just follow the pattern. So don't worry if you really don't want to do any math. I don't blame you. Here's the last double crochet of round 5. We're going to go ahead and join it again, top of that DC. And then we're going to check our diameter to see how our circumference is coming along. So now we are at about, let me lay this flatter here, at about 6 inches. So let's take our number here. We have 6 times 3.14. Now we're at 18.84, so we're a little bit over 18, But like I said, I think it's better to go a little bit bigger than smaller because their heads are always going to get bigger. They're not going to get smaller. So I think we're ready for the body of the beanie. So we're going to go ahead and start round 6. If you're using different yarn and you still need to do a couple more rounds, then just when you're ready, head over to the body instructions and you can start with that. Okay, so for the body instructions of the beanie, we're going to start with a round of single crochet. So we're going to alternate single crochet and double crochet to give the beanie just a little bit more of an interesting look. So we're just going to do a chain 1, and for single crochet, you don't normally count the chain 1 as a stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and single crochet in that same stitch as our join, and that will help keep our seam straight. If I started the stitch over, my seam would start to slant. So I'm going to do single crochets in each stitch around. So you insert your hook under both loops, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops on your hook. So just a whole round of single crochet. This is 60 stitches for this beanie. If your beanie is a little bit different, if you went with a smaller size, because you can stop at round 4 if you want a brand new newborn beanie. But this will give the baby some breathing room on her head for the 18-inch. Just single crochet around, and then we'll join up and do the next round. Here's my last single crochet. Better focus there. Here is my last single crochet, and now I'm going to join with a slip stitch in that very first single crochet. Don't slip stitch into your chain 1, otherwise you'll end up getting kind of a wonky seam. Just go for the chain 1. I'm sorry, the first single crochet and slip stitch. So now we're going to do a round of double crochet. So you'll see that we're still not cupping, it's not turning into a beanie yet. It takes a couple of rounds once we stop increasing. So don't worry if your beanie still looks flat. It's going to cup down and this isn't going to add to your circumference. So now we're going to do our tall chain for our double crochet round. Chain and lock it in, and then do your double crochet in that join again. That's going to keep our seam straight. And then keep getting my stitches confused. Keep double crocheting in each stitch around. So again, you'll have 60 stitches if you're following the pattern exactly at the end of this round. Otherwise, you'll have some multiple of 12 depending on what yarn you're using. So just make sure that you have that many stitches. If you're new, sometimes you can lose one here or there. So just count them real fast. Make sure you have 60 at the end of the round. Here I'm at my last double crochet for the round. So I'm going to go ahead and join at the top of my first double crochet. So we have two rounds of the body done. It's starting to cup over now, so you can see it turning into the beanie shape. So we're just going to alternate doing the single crochet and double crochet. So if you're making this beanie and it's a different size yarn, what you want to do is to get to the size that you want to fold it down, and then it's going to start coming down, and measure it so that it's about 7 to 7.5 inches long. So right now we're at 4, so we want to go down to about here, and that's going to give you a good size beanie that covers the ears and keeps the baby warm. Or you could go to about 8 or 9 inches if you want a flap on it. So if you want to be able to turn it up, go a few more rows. So what we're going to do right now is I'm just going to go ahead and start doing these single crochets, and then I'm going to do some double crochets, and then I'm going to do more single crochets. So I'm going to do some more rounds. You guys go ahead and do your rounds, and then we'll come back when we're close to the 7-inch mark and take a look at what we have and decide if I want to do a fold on the beanie or not. So I'm just getting ready to join my round. This is a round of double crochet. And let's see how many rounds I have so far. So these are pretty easy to count. You just count your circles. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we have the alternating single crochet, double crochet. So it's a thin line here. So that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So I'm going to get out my tape measure so I can see what my measurement from the top of the, so you can just kind of go right to where the center hole is and then run it down along because it's going to want to curve a little bit, and you'll see that I'm right at about 7 inches. I'm just about there, and I wanted to end this with a single crochet to give it a nice edge. So I'm going to do one more row or round of single crochet and then I'll be done. So remember, if you want to make this so that it folds up, you can add, I would probably do another 4 rounds. I would do double, single on top of this so that you get a nice cuff when you fold it up. So that would be something that you can do if you want to actually have that fold in your beanie. But for our last round, it's just going to be another round of single crochet, very easy. Gives you a nice little edge along the edge, and we'll come back and join and weave in our ends. Here is the last single crochet, and we're just going to join it with the first stitch in the round. Then we're going to fasten off. So I always do that long chain to cut. I pull out the tail, and then I have my fasten off there. And the beanie is done. So I just need to weave in the middle end. So remember, my hole came open a little bit, so I can just pull on that to get it all the way closed, and then I'll run the yarn around the center. So let me show you that real fast. So just thread your yarn needle or tapestry needle, whatever you have. Make sure, if you want that a completely closed hole, to pull on it, and then you can run your needle around the circle to help keep that closed, and then you can weave in down your stitches after you get that center done. So this is a great place to hide your tail because it's so dense right here that you can't see the stitches through it all. But you can also go up your stitches so that way it will get anchored in there better rather than just in a big circle. So you can come across and then go back down. You can split the stitches, that helps to anchor it as well. The acrylic is usually pretty slippery. It doesn't hold together as good as wool does. So you want to make sure that you do a lot of weaving in with your acrylic. And then if a little piece of it sticks out from it sliding and moving and wearing, you can just cut that little piece off and know that you still have a lot more woven in, so it's not going to stick out in a funny area. So again, I can go up here, I can go through these dense stitches here where I made all these double crochets. Lots of different spots. So I'm going to weave in my other end and then show you the finished beanie. Alright, here's our finished beanie, and you're actually looking at the seam side, so if I'm not pointing out, you may not even notice it, but right there is where our seam is. So you can see that using that tall chain and having the double crochets, it's a lot less noticeable than having a chain 3. So there's our chain 3 for the very first round. So if I would have done chain 3s, that seam would have been very noticeable. So this is perfect for, I'd say, like a 6-month to 12-month or even a little bit older. So it'll do really well for growing into, and it's got a lot of stretch, so it should last probably for a couple of years. But if you want to do like a brand new baby newborn, this is easy to adjust. Just I would take off that last round of the crown, because remember when we measured it, it was right around 16 inches circumference, and that's about a newborn size. And then I take off probably 2 rows of our body. I think that would give, it'll still be long enough to cover the ears, but not super long where it's coming down over the baby's eyes. But if you have any questions, you can leave them below, and thank you for watching.